Welcome back to Pastoring in the Digital Parish, your resource and point of connection for building your digital ministry toolkit and bringing your congregation into the digital age. Hope you're doing well. My name is Ryan Dunn, and in this session, we'll get to know the Reverend Bethany Peerbolte and hear how it started and how it's going in her online ministry, which is called Our Tapestry. I love these episodes where we hear the actual stories of digital ministries in development and the practical ideas that they provide for our own online context. So with Bethany, we'll talk about confronting manipulative Christian content online to launching an inclusive and digital faith community. She shares the viral moments and the challenges that she's faced, including the Christian trolls, as she's carved out a path for meaningful digital ministry. If this kind of content is helpful or valuable, then let it be known to the world. How you can do that is by leaving a rating and or review on your podcast listening platform of choice. That would be super helpful. It helps new people find the podcast. It also helps us connect with other digital ministry practitioners who could provide some valuable insights as guests on this podcast. So many thanks for doing that. Our guest / adjunct professor for this session is, again, the Reverend Bethany Peerbolte. Bethany is a pastor in the Presbyterian Church USA. She currently runs the all-online expression of church known as Our Tapestry, which is a plant of the Denver Presbytery. She seeks to support people in theological deserts and give everyone access to pastoral care, faith formation, and loving community. So let's hear how all that started and how it's going today on Pastoring in the Digital Parish. Reverend Bethany, thank you so much for joining us. How goes it with your soul today?
Soul's pretty good today. My basketball team won March Madness, so the first round.
Wait, are you speaking prophecy here? This is interesting.
Just the sun's out here in Denver, and it's been a good week. So, been loving life recently.
Well, we want to get the story of Our Tapestry and how it started and how it's going in digital ministry for you these days. So let's go back to the beginning. What inspired Our Tapestry, and what was it that just made you decide, like, this is the forum in which I want to do ministry?
Yeah. The Spirit decided that for me. I wish
you're one of those. Yeah. Oh, Holy Spirit said, so this is what I have to do.
I saw it and it was happening. No, I got pushed off the deep end. During COVID, was doing youth ministry in a church in Michigan, and was reaching out to families. And end of summer of 2020, I started getting parents asking, like, well, my kids are talking a lot more about hell, or like a kid would ask me, like, what does it mean to be a lukewarm Christian? And I was like, that's really not a Presbyterian concept. Like, where are you hearing this? Normally I'd be like, oh, they went to, some of the big box churches and, for their youth group, but I knew they weren't doing that because it was COVID.
Yeah.
So found out it was TikTok, that they had heard these messages. And I had been on TikTok for a while. So I wasn't unaware of the platform, but I had never come across this Christian content, which is really the algorithm being like, oh, she interacts with queer stuff, so she probably doesn't want the Christian stuff. Because the algorithm is real smart. And so I went looking for it, found a lot of really abysmal stuff, really emotionally manipulative, very behavioral focused, very focused on hell and the afterlife. And so it was like, okay, well, if this is what my kids are running across, I have an opportunity to show them how I engage with these people and sort of what my response would be. So I asked them to start sending me videos that I could duet or respond to or whatever. And in that process of making content, sort of branched out and started making, funny lip syncs and different things that were happening. And it caught on real quickly. A lot of people still shocked about a female pastor.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
would have a transgender a stole on, or talk about a Black Lives Matter issue, and people were like, "You're going to get fired from your church." And I'm like, "Well, my denomination has already said all of this stuff, so
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to get fired." Um, and people were just like really interested in the fact that that brand, that branch of Christianity existed, and it snowballed and became like a thing. And I had people that were watching my videos every day and was just like, what is going on?
Was there one particular video that really kind of blew up?
The first video that really blew up was me in a transgender stole, and the sound that was going viral was this girl singing like, I know, I know, I know, I know. The joke being like, I'm aware, I do this on purpose kind of thing. And so the wording on the screen was like, hey, Pastor, did you know that those are the colors of the transgender pride flag? And then it was just me like, yeah, I know, like I'm doing this on purpose. I wear this stole because it is part of my yoke, part of my leadership to lead people in the church who are also transgender. And people are just like, wait a second, like what? And that debate has even gone even deeper since that moment. Like that wasn't really the headline that it is now. Um, and so people like ask questions like, well, can the church support transgender people? I'm like, yeah, page 1 of Genesis supports transgender people. Like this shouldn't be a debate, and I don't know why it's a debate, but I realize there is, and so let's talk about it. Um, I would go live and like would get lots of people who are coming in on a regular basis, and chatting and kind of like creating that community, checking in on each other, asking for prayers, and then coming back and telling us what was going on. I'd also get the haters, right? So I'd get,
Yeah.
especially if I wore my collar, I would get a lot of people coming in and telling me like I'm not a Christian and I can't be a pastor. And um, I'm still trying to come up with a term. Like the general term is trolls,
Hmm.
like people who come in, but these people are like the Christian trolls are
Yeah.
a whole nother level.
Hmm.
They are actively denying my personhood, my profession. It's very different. Um, and so I'd get both of those things, and we'd have really great conversations, and I would, keep my pastoral kind of stance while I was online, and then I'd get offline. I'd be like, oh, these people,
Yeah, right.
But it really fueled the whole idea of like, there is a certain voice in Christianity that is super loud, and it is not the progressive voice. And
Hmm.
so if I can get out there and engage and give another option to interact with these other voices, maybe win a little bit of our reputation back, that would be a really lovely mission to have.
Mm. So was that really the idea behind Our Tapestry, was to kind of provide this counter theological voice?
That's where it started. Um, I, was doing this as a hobby because I had a full-time on-site church position.
Was this your
Uh,
youth pastoring
yeah.
gig?
I'm
Okay.
Presbyterian in Birmingham, yeah, Michigan. And it was really just like, okay, let me just like be part of the conversation. But then as I went live and more of these people came in on a regular basis, and we were talking about, similar books, and realizing they bought the book and they're reading the book, and like, okay, well, let's do a book study together on Zoom so that we can, kind of go through this as a community. And then I had one time that someone came in and admitted, and they was someone who had come in a couple times. Like I recognized their username, and they came in and they were like, "Hey, I had a really bad day, and I think this is the last day for me to be alive." And to be a pastor was like, I don't know where you are. I don't know what the
Mm.
resources are around you. I can't hug you. I can't, like, all I can do is send you affirming words and like support. And people in the comment section were like also doing the same thing, being like, where are you? Oh, I'm, a couple cities over. Let's meet for coffee this weekend. Like trying to like engage. That night was like awful for me, being like, what should I have done? What could I have
Mm.
done? Woke up the next morning and went to that person's account, and they had posted a new video. And I was like, cool, they made it through the night. So I went into the comment section on that video and was like, so proud of you, glad you're still here. And there were other people from that live who had done the same thing. That morning, they went to their account, they went to their comment section, they said, we're proud of you. And that was the moment that I was like, this is more than just content making. There's community happening. Like, there are strangers on the internet who care about these other strangers on the internet that they may or may not ever see again, but there's love and caring and support happening. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out, like, how do I make that space happen again? Like, what was that? The book study turned into a weekly Bible study gathering. We started with a couple people on like a text chain, and then when we got too big, we're like, okay, I guess we got to flip over to Discord so we don't have this like massive group text going on. It's really just kind of been, as I meet people individually, then we do pastoral care, and people are getting married and they want to have me talk with their parents so that their parents can come to their wedding and feel like God is actually affirming that. Like, it just kind of is me making myself available to people in what I call theological deserts, that they don't have access to any other Christian theology angle. And they're like, I would love to have a pastor that could walk me through a faith journey that isn't toxic. I would love to have a pastor that could help me unpack this religious trauma. And so it's like, okay, I can't be there everywhere physically, but I can be everywhere, like, in person online. So let me figure out how I can be there for you. And that's just kind of every 6 months it turns into something different. And some of the stuff stays and some of it goes, and it's been a really beautiful ministry to watch progress.
In our tradition, we toss around this term, pathway of discipleship or journey of discipleship. I'm sure that you'd have like similar phraseology.
Yeah.
So it sounds like yours kind of begins with TikTok in this case, and especially sounds like the TikTok live events, and then moves from that to maybe an invitation to the online course of study, the Bible study, and then to maybe Discord from there. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, pastoral care, one-on-one, talking with people who are thinking about baptism, or a lot of people who have been baptized, and that's like a thing that they've never been able to reconcile because it wasn't their choice. I love infant baptism, right? Like, but for some people later on in life, with the way that community treated them when they actually knew who they were as an adult, now they're like, well, now I have this like stain on me of baptism. Like, they baptized me in their tradition. And so to unpack that and say, there are parts of this that you can really embrace and love, and you can let go of the other parts. You don't have to take this. Most people know the deconstruction world. I use the word declutter because I feel like that's, decluttering is a lifelong thing that you're going to have to do. And it's never, ending. And there's really great things that people have gotten from their church families. And there's some really abusive, toxic things that they've gotten from their church families and traditions. So if we can declutter some of that so that you can live faith with all the stuff that was great, awesome. Some people, like, part of my work is helping them get on the off-ramp of Christianity. To be like, this is the word God is so ingrained in all these terrible things. I don't ever want you to believe in a God, like the divine, a spirit, but like that word God has got to go. Because for some people, it's just so damaged that it's never going to be something that is as comforting and loving as it should be in their lives.
Yeah. You brought up baptism, and we want to talk about kind of how things started and then how things are going these days. I feel like when it comes to certain, sacraments or rites within the church, like this is one of these learning experiences. Like we come up against like, oh, now we need to figure out how we're going to do communion or how we're going to do baptism. So what does baptism look like in your practice of digital ministry?
Literally a thing that's been rolling around in my head, like in the last 2 months, like as I'm talking to this person, like, how am I going to do this if they say, yes, I want to be baptized? Like, okay, would love to have that problem, right? I think I talk a lot about the abandonment of these siblings that the church has done by focusing so much on on-site physical locations. And I didn't want it to be my fight, but I think it is my fight to have to move that church into, like, we need to be able to be there for people that we can never physically be there for. And one of the cool things about our sacraments and the genius of Jesus choosing these sacraments is there's water everywhere, there's bread everywhere, there's some kind of juice everywhere, like everywhere in the world. This is part of every culture. And so it's not that we're having to introduce something foreign. We just have to figure out how to make that, like, that spiritual moment, or whatever we kind of consider it, transubstantiation, consubstantiation, all those big words that we've had. Now it's just kind of like, do we believe that the Spirit, like, if I give a blessing right here, can send that blessing to wherever it is that this other person is? Like,
nope, sorry, it's out of the 50-mile radius.
Right, exactly.
Your power has diminished.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, communion, I think a lot of churches figured out pretty quickly during COVID that, a bite and a sip, whatever it is, go for it. Baptism, I think, is a little bit more complicated, because we do want to have, that moment of the water being touched and blessed and moved around. But, if it's a thing that, like, someone is in Trinidad and Tobago, like, I have someone from there who joins our Bible studies. So if they want to get baptized, am I going to go there? Probably not. But I think there should be some kind of theological way that we can make that make sense. And those are the questions that I think digital ministry is really lifting up and putting at a forefront for the church to say, wait, but do you actually believe you have to lay on hands for this commissioning to work? And most people are going to say, well, no, it's not about my hand touching someone. Like, that's not magical. Yeah. And so it's like, so then what is it? What is the thing? How does that miracle of commissioning happen? Well, it's the Spirit. Like, okay, so then, the Spirit can go, like, we have to talk about that, because it's going to make a difference for digital ministry real quick. But the physical church might not, or the on-site church might not have to ask those questions for a long time.
Yeah.
But we get to say to them, let's talk about it now.
Okay. All right. And so you're still processing through what that might look like.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And polity. I mean, Presbyterians, we love our polity. Who gets the per capita for the person that's living in Florida? Is it, the Denver Presbytery? Okay. Like, there are some really big questions. And then it comes down to, well, why don't churches in your area attract this person so that they pay per capita to you? Like, it's some pretty good questions that people come up with, and they get a little peeved sometime with the answer, like, to have to actually look at, well, why does, Denver Presbytery get credit for this? Just because the leader lives there? It's like, well, our system is very leader-centric. If you don't like it, maybe we need to talk about why our system is so leader-centric. Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk about that.
We're getting all kinds of meddlesome now. Yeah. Well, let's talk about, like, what the flow of practice looks like for you. Can you take us through a typical week in the life of Our Tapestry?
Yeah, typical is a thing.
You're right.
Tuesday nights is our big, like, gathering time. I have a West Coast Bible study and an East Coast Bible study, which, being in mountain time, is lovely because it means I don't have to stay up all night to reach out to the people on the West Coast. I have a pastoral care appointments, probably 1 or 2 a week, that people will sign up for to meet on Zoom and to chat. We have a Discord where, anybody at any time, it's like a chat room. Anybody can go in and put something in there. Hey, I have this song. I've played around a little bit with devotionals. I think the big switch for me in digital ministry is that the feedback loop is a little, like, holy, like, not holy, but there's
has holes in it. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Like, I put something out there and I'm like, did anybody
Oh, gotcha.
Is
All
it
right. Yeah.
happy
There's
this
no
week?
receiving line at the end of the
Right.
service to be like,
Right.
good
Yeah. There's
message.
no
Yeah.
like, hey, I really like that thing, that article you wrote. Like sometimes that doesn't happen.
Um,
Um, but that Discord is open 24/7. And because we do have people on either coast, someone on the East Coast who's having a middle of the night kind of crisis, someone on the West Coast is still up and so can still have that conversation and be available with them. So that's a really cool part of like that kind of space. I'm making content, so I make it a habit to scroll for at least an hour. It's probably a lot more than that, but like intentionally
that's-
scrolling for an hour to be like, okay, what things am I seeing happen over and over again? So that's obviously the format that's going viral right now that people are stopping and listening to. What kind of stories have happened in my life that I need to tell people about? Like there was one week I had like 4 or 5 people call me up and or text me to talk about someone who had like severely disrespected them in a way that was really off-putting. And I was like, that's so interesting that this is happening multiple times. So I made a post about it and like, Jesus talking about turning the other cheek and what does that actually mean?
Hmm.
Are we supposed to be doormats for people to just keep, I don't want to say a bad word, crapping on? Or are we supposed to like have some sort of accountability, like to make people realize that we are humans and we deserve a level of respect? And so those kinds of things, just kind of being open to what's happening in people's lives. Working in coffee shops has been really helpful. Like I've heard people be like, "Oh, did you hear this story?" And I hear that 2 or 3 times. I'm like, "Okay, I better look up at the story." And I look at the
Okay. Yeah.
story, and then I realize, like, "Oh, there's a really great, you know, pastoral response to what's happening in the news or with this person." And Kate Middleton. I'm trying to
I
figure
was,
out
my
how am I
mind was,
gonna.
were you reading my thoughts? I was
Yeah,
turning
no,
over
I'm like
like,
I am
what
so
kind of
engrossed in
pivot
it.
can we make towards Kate
And
Middleton?
I think I'm starting to like I'm starting to get into my like this is what I think is the like pastoral Christian kind of like thing about Kate Middleton that we need to learn.
Hmm.
But yeah, staying up to date on those. I just had a video go viral Monday where I was talking about Easter eggs and how they're actually aborted chickens that are dressed in drag for children, and everyone's just like, "Oh my, what?" Like, no, and that one I actually pissed off both sides because
Ah,
the progressives are like, well, it's actually not an aborted chicken. I'm like, it's not a science lesson. I'm trying to make a point here. So trying to stay like current with what's happening in the world. What is a Christian response? How can we, either look at this in a light-hearted way or really do a deep dive, teach about it. So it's a lot of like that kind of content creation and listening to what's going on.
hmm. How are you encouraging people to interact with one another on Discord?
That one comes pretty easily. I mean, we have a couple different channels that are named different things. So like I have one that's like memes that will help. So if someone comes across a meme that's helpful, like they know that that's a place where they can share it. You share it on Facebook, you share it in the Discord. We'll have one for whatever the Bible study kind of series is, so that can continue if someone brings up. I think this last week someone brought up a playlist that they had, and so I said, "Hey, will you post that into the Discord?" And so people have been listening to the songs and suggesting other songs to go onto that playlist. So it really is, just like when you have what makes you text up a friend, what makes you, call someone. It really is just kind of this is a place where we get to be in community and we're here to laugh and cry with one another, and it just kind of becomes part of people's rhythms.
Okay. Well, we've name dropped a few pieces of technology that it sounds like are central to your practice of ministry. Discord, obviously, being one. TikTok being one. You're doing assume reels alongside those TikToks, or?
Yeah, the TikToks go into Instagram Reel and onto YouTube Shorts. Zoom. We're actually trying to make the switch over to the Discord has a similar kind of structure as Zoom that you can use. And I think we're getting to the point where enough
Hmm.
of our people know Discord and that we can introduce, like, now we can really just like use it for all of our things.
Yeah.
So Zoom kind of happened because it was COVID and everyone knew what Zoom was and how to get in and whatnot. And now I think we're getting to the point where, like, why do we have two different platforms when this platform does the same thing? So yeah, I don't like to give people another app to open. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be where you're already opening your
Mm.
phone. So Discord was one of those things that was like, I think I need to give you another app. But then once they're on it, they're like, oh, okay, I get this.
Are there any other digital tools that you're finding are really necessary for your practice of ministry?
I'm loving Opus. It's an AI. You put in like a hour conversation or an hour video, and AI will clip it up for you in little pieces. It's terrifying and life-saving at the same time.
Terrifying, how so?
Terrifying that it's so good at finding
Oh,
the
okay.
moments. It's like, how do you know that that was a really profound thing that I just said? Like, you're AI. Yeah, so a little bit, and then it'll be like, and here's what the title of the video should be, and here's the description of the video, and I'm just like, you're so much better at this than I am, and you did it in like 30 minutes. So yeah, terrifying, but also saves a lot of time, a lot of energy. I don't know. I mean, like, my iPhone and I are very much, a big integral kind of thing, like, as hardware goes. I just saw a really great concept of, like, millennials understand when a task is a little internet problem, so you get out your phone and you go on the little internet, or a big internet problem, like, I got to get on my computer and I got to, like, go on my laptop, and I was like, oh, that is totally a concept. So I've been trying to think about what that is for, like, our ministry. Like, a lot of the ministry is, other than the Bible studies, is a small internet. It's on your phone, it's scrolling, it's Discord chatting, whatever. But, like, ooh, what part of ministry should I be saying is like, this is a big internet thing. This is something I need to have on a screen with, all this stuff. So those kind of concepts just kind of come up, and I go, well, what does that mean for the church? What does that mean for a ministry setting? Which is just like the best blessing I could ever ask for, to be the one that gets to sit around and think those things.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
With your Bible studies, are they topical or?
We've messed around with a couple different things. We've done some where, like, we realize we've just, like, talked about God's story a lot. So, like, let's tell our stories. So one person will take a week and they'll tell their story, their life, and we get to, like, learn more about them. We did prophets. We went through, like, the prophets one by one. And I think we got through about, I don't know, 8 weeks of those. We got real sick of that because it's a lot of the same stuff, right? It's a lot of the same.
Okay, yeah, we're supposed to do justice.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, be
yeah,
good to people.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. People get it wrong, and then we get it right, and then we get it wrong again, and yeah. We did one about, like, fear. What is, like, sacred fear? And right now we're kind of doing, we did a couple of the Lent of Liberation, from the book Lent for Liberation, and it just connects American slavery with some, like, concepts from Lent. So we did a couple of those. Again, they're, like, very heavy, and most of my people are doing, like, social justice work and working on themselves just in general, because they're pretty progressive millennial and Gen Zs. So now I've just kind of been reading the lectionary throughout the week and been like, okay, what do we need to talk about? And those have been amazingly fruitful, to just be like, here's something that I found interesting. What do you guys think? And just let them, like, go about. I think they're feeling confident enough in their ability to do some exegesis, as lay people. Whereas before, they come out of these traditions that are like, if you don't know the right interpretation, then you're not, like, good enough. Like, that's not. And so for a long time, and usually when it's new people in, it's like, well, what does this mean, Rev Bethany? Or, like, what is this saying? What am I supposed to know? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? And that's really off-putting for a lot of people, because they're like, no,
And just tell me.
I need you to tell me what this is. And I'm like, I don't know. And I have definitely lost people who have come in and I've been like, I'm not going to tell you the answer to that. And they get so frustrated. And it's just like, I don't have answers. Like, you can help me, like, come up with something that makes sense for you and us. But that being raised in that place where you are there to memorize what the leader says is there, is a very hard thing for some people to transition out of, and it just feels very unsafe.
How do you, in a context like that, how do you guard against somebody else then trying to fill that role of being the answer person?
The answer person, yeah. I mean, in all the spaces we have right now, I at least have like access to them. I mean, I guess some people could be like talking, one-on-one and be that, but when we come together, like, we are very intentional about if you have something that you want to say, like, we're going to give you the space and time to say it. And the expectation of someone might push back on that. Someone might go, that's not exactly what I'm thinking about this. And to kind of honor that spectrum, when we do get into some weeds of like, well, yeah, this has got some baggage with it, I'll present the spectrum and I'll say, okay, there are Christians over here that are going to interpret this like this. They get it from A, B, C, and D. This is the tradition around it. And then there are Christians who are over here who are going to say, this completely other thing. And this is the scriptures that they wrap around it. And I just like, here's the whole spectrum. You're welcome. And then make everyone else kind of like have to sit with that for a while. I think it's very refreshing for the people who have been in this is what it is. I grew up in that. I was in Missouri Synod Lutheran as a kid. So I was given a catechism with questions and the answers. And I was supposed to memorize the answers. So I get it. But that's also where I fell in love with pushing back on the answers. And so for the people who have been in those spaces, it is relieving for many of them to go like, wait, so my inkling that when Jesus said everyone, he meant everyone, is okay? Yep. It's kind of like affirming and empowering the way the Spirit has already been talking through them and in their hearts to say, you have a really good sense of what the Spirit is saying. Like, listen to what your heart is saying. Like, you have the law written in your heart. What does it say? And when you feel icky and cringy because someone else said something that doesn't really match, that was the Spirit inside of you going, that's not exactly what I meant. And to affirm that has been a lot of the work that I do with them.
Okay. Well, here we are in 2024. As you look back to the early days of 2020, 2021, what's something that you kind of wish that you'd put into practice then that might have made life easier today?
I wish I would have stayed committed to finding and developing the space for minors, for youth. Because I was in youth group, that was something that I originally was very concerned about. How do I make a safe internet space for them to come into and for me to invite outside people into, where I know who they are, I know how things are going to interact. Like, I can't control a lot of that on the internet. And it fell off because I met with a couple developers that were just like, you're the only one who's going to want a space that's like hard to get into. And I'm like, well, but I want it to be hard because I want to deter anybody who's going to use that space in a negative way to just not get in. And I just got really like thrown off of that a lot. Honestly, I think virtual reality metaverse is the best place that's doing it. And it's just the equipment is so expensive that it's just not accessible right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I do miss, like, I do interact with minors on like social media places. But when they try to individually message me, I have to say, I'm either going to have to bring another adult into this conversation, which then it sometimes just completely destroys their like, no, I don't want to, I only trust you kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I still feel bad that I don't have a really great way. And some people that do it are like, well, they just gotta like be someone who accepts the risks. And I haven't gotten there yet, like where
Okay.
I just can't accept the risks yet. I might
Yeah.
get
Well,
there
it's been
maybe, but I'm not
ingrained
there yet.
in, yeah, been ingrained in a lot of our training. Is I came up through youth ministry as well, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hammered in, or
It
at
is.
least it was for a time, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, how do you kind of measure the growth or the impact of your ministry? Well, you know, for a lot of us in the olden days, we would say, well, we've got 700 people in worship on Sunday. What does the metric look like now?
Yeah. The metrics are so interesting. So I did a great retreat with the Denver new worshiping communities, and we talked about like what is the impact, and we started with like what is the impact that we want to have as far as if we didn't exist anymore, what would the world
Hmm.
miss? So that was really helpful to start there and then go, okay, how do we know that that is happening? Well, okay, these four things. How do you measure those four things? So I try to keep track of things like hate comments. People who are coming in and pushing back on what I'm saying mean that I'm engaging with the conversations and the topics that need to have some back and forth on it. If I'm not getting anybody who's upset with what I'm saying, probably not saying enough, or
Hmm.
I'm not getting my voice out there far enough for them to then engage back with me. Because then those follow-up videos or comment section, like most of the ministry happens in the comment section, like with outside
Hmm.
people, like they come in and they go this and I go that, and we go back and forth, or other people go back and forth. And so that is a sign for me that people are engaging in a way that they are being challenged and or being comforted. So they're either coming in and saying, well, my pastor said this other thing. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't have necessarily. And they're like, oh, thank goodness, or they're coming in and saying, well, it's this other way. And I'm going, well, does it have to be that other way? And they're like, yes, it has to be that other way. And then we have a little
Hmm.
bit of a challenge conversation. So comments are a really great metric for me to look at. Followers, when TikTok did their like bot purge, it was like broke my heart because I did lose like 20,000 followers, and I was like, oh, I was,
Hmm.
now when I see that two in the 200,000 followers, like I have 285,000 followers, but it used to be a 300,000.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Hmm.
breaks my heart. But that's how those social medias are set up. So I've learned like followers don't mean anything. Like it could be a bot, it could be 8 people or one person who has 8 different accounts. That's not the thing. The thing that I like to keep track of are new people. So new people who follow who are like, I'm like, oh, an hour ago they weren't sure if God loved them. I'll keep track of like if I see someone go in and they like a bunch of videos, like people will go in and then go to your profile and they'll kind of scroll through all of your stuff and watch a lot of your latest stuff, and they'll like it and then scroll and like. And so when you see that the same person liking a bunch of different videos, it means that person has just found you and is just interacting with this message right now.
Hmm.
I get a fair amount of people who reach out and go like, thank you so much, or your content's underrated, or how can I send this to my mom? Those kinds of comments show that they're making an impact. At least like on the outside world kind of thing. On the inside, it's the people who like when they start exchanging phone numbers with each other, like this in-person meeting that's going to happen this August when people are like, hey, I'm going on a road trip. And they're like, hey, let's all meet up in Denver. Like,
Hmm.
wait, what? Like, okay, there's like community happening. We've got some people who are trans who are in Florida, and there's a lot of people who reach out to me and go, are they okay? Do we need to do something? Like, how's that going? Like, so I go like, hey, reach out to them. They said that they're fine, but letting people know that you're concerned about them is great.
No.
Um, Pride is coming, so we're going to create some stuff that people can wear. We came up with a tagline that like queer is holy. And so we're going to create some shirts that people can wear to their prides and give out. I have these little get out of hell free cards that I hand out or leave places. So getting DMs from that and knowing that those cards are going out. So it's less about like how much money is coming in, how many people are in Zoom, how many emails are going out. I like the ones that the numbers of like how many conversations have I had in a comment section that went back and forth 2 or 3 times, that volleyed back 2 or 3 times. How many times have I heard of someone meeting up with someone else, either on their own Zoom or a phone call, things that are not my initiation, that like other people are reaching out and creating relationship beyond me going like, here's this person, you guys should meet. But they're doing it naturally is a really important thing for me.
Hmm. And is that something that you're able to bring back to the Presbytery and be?
Denver is lovely. Yes, Denver,
okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I do give them, like I can go into TikTok and tell them like I've got 40% followers are 18 to 24 female. I can give them those analytics, but they're very conscious about the way that metrics have locked us into a certain kind of ministry. And I mean, they've got like 14 different new worshiping communities here. So they're very much in that innovative space and mindset, which is another reason why I was like, this is where I need to go. The larger denomination, Presbyterian PCUSA, we might have some work to do to accept those numbers. Even though the numbers of new worshiping communities memberships are beautiful numbers and they are growing, and they say like that's the only number that's growing is new worshiping community membership, it's still a membership number.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the same thing. And sometimes I wonder if I fit better into like mission coworker, like we call our missionary mission coworkers, because the questions we ask them are much more story and impact related than they are number of baptisms, number of communions, and so there's some disconnect between what we expect from our mission coworkers and what we expect from our charter churches.
Okay. Yeah. Well, final question for you. I'm pulling this one out here, so if you don't have an answer for it, it's fine. But let's say the TikTok ban goes through. How does that impact your practice of ministry?
That's when the House voted on it, I had like 10 texts within like 30 minutes.
Oh, like, what are you gonna do?
I was like, well, first of all, we've done this every year for the last 4 years. So I'm desensitized to it. I'll freak out when I actually see it happening. I mean, there's always Instagram, there's always Facebook, YouTube, there's always another platform. So as far as that's concerned, it's just getting people to go over to the other platforms. And I do every once in a while remind people that I have these other places where they can find me. Personally, I don't think it can go through. My personal kind of dialogue around it is TikTok is a place where I get to hear about what's happening in Gaza from mothers who have children in Gaza and who are with their children in Gaza. I get to hear about someone who is in a wheelchair and trying to get around Denver from someone who's in a wheelchair trying to get around Denver. So I think that scares our government officials, that they no longer control the narrative of how I see the other or someone else. I can get it directly from them and go, hey, Denver, we say we're this like great walkable city, but it's not a very good rollable city. We need to do something about that. I think that is the biggest thing that people are afraid of. And this whole idea that someone else owns our information, it would be so much cheaper for the Chinese to have just asked Facebook to like, can we buy the information from you? Because it's there. It's not about the information. It's about the way we're able to communicate with one another. And it's the power of what it is. I have a course that's going to come out through Convergence hopefully next month, but I need to actually like put the videos together um, about like how do we teach our kids how to follow people and create a For You page that will feed their soul. It's not just celebrities and influencers. It's not just the popular kids at school. You know, it's artists, it's poets, it's activists. You know, it's these people that you're never going to be able to meet. I know more about what it's like to be quadriplegic than I would ever know because I watch someone who like puts their makeup on every morning, and it's like I would have never been able to ask these questions even if I knew this person personally. I'm not going to ask these like invasive questions. We get to learn so much about other people's experiences through social media that if we can be intentional about how we're following other people, it can be a really great space for our kids and for us to be a part of.
I look forward to you putting that out. So
okay, I'll
make it happen. Get those videos done, would you?
Okay, good. Yeah.
I got a 16-year-old. He's at the impressionable stage right now. So
although I think Gen Z does it. Gen Z and Alpha do it better than like millennials. Like we weren't parented with any of it. So like I feel like my friends and I are worse on our phones because we didn't have our parents being like, put it away when you're eating.
Yes. Here are proper boundaries. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's good. Well, Reverend Bethany, thank you so much for joining us, for offering your story, and for doing what you're doing out there in digital space.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me a chance to tell the story and let people know that there's options, even if they're in those theological deserts far away from things, that there are people that they can still get in contact with to have support and faith community.
And for you, where is the entry point or one-stop shop, so to speak, of finding out more things about Reverend Bethany Peerbolte?
Yeah, it's Rev Bethany on all the platforms. That you can find that in my bio. From there goes to the Our Tapestry website. But also ourtapestry.online is the ministry. And yeah, we've got a lot of really good, exciting things coming up for June for Pride. So I'd love for people to go and get the shirt and let people know that they can get out of hell free.
Cool. I'll tell you, those stories are so valuable for informing our own practice of digital ministry. So thanks again to Reverend Bethany Peerbolte for sharing that with us. You can share your own experiences in our Facebook group, which is conveniently called Pastoring in the Digital Parish. Bet you never would have guessed. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, how it started and how it's going with Crossfire Faith and Gaming would be a good follow-up. Also, we got into how it started and how it's going in the episode called Engaging the Digital Parish. That's with Reverend Javon Caldwell Gross. That would be a home run listen, and that's my start of the baseball season drop right there. You're welcome. Actually, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining this journey with me. It's so rewarding for me to be able to have these conversations, to learn with these individuals, and help support both their ministries and hopefully yours as well. If there's something that I can do for you, reach out. digitalparish@umcom.org is a handy email address to send stuff to. Again, that's digitalparish@umcom.org. We're drawing to a close of season number 8. It's possible that we have just one episode left. So as we start dreaming about a 9th season, again, I encourage you to drop into the Facebook group or to utilize that email address to offer what would be of value for you in the future. Thanks so much. Right now, though, I can say I'll chat at you again next week. So, peace.